Premium quality football shirts at an extremely affordable price. Sound good? If so, check out the sponsor of today's video, jerseyfifa.com. You can see that I've sent you some shirts and they really are top quality, so make sure to click the link in the description to go find a shirt for yourself or perhaps as a gift for someone else. And you can now use code jerseyfifa at checkout for 10% off your order. That's code jerseyfifa at checkout for 10% off your order. I really do recommend their product, so go take a look. Now let's get into the analysis. So last night Darwin Nunez was unveiled as a Liverpool player, leading to a lot of excitement amongst the fans, and rightly so. Now there are some questions over his price, but personally I couldn't care less because it isn't my money. The same goes for Erling Haaland's transfer as well. Again, it was probably a lot of money, but I don't care. What I'm more interested in is the fact that the two best teams in England have just signed two of the best young strikers in world football. So with that in mind, what I want to do today is sort of compare the two of them and put them against each other. But rather than saying this player is better than that player, I want to compare how they will adjust to the Premier League and how they will play. Before that, it's time for a quick physical profile, and we can see straight away that this is a pair of physical monsters coming into the Premier League, both standing at over 6 foot tall, with Haaland edging it slightly, coming in at around 6'3". So now it's time to look at them as players and what they have to offer, and we'll start with their positions, because despite both being labelled as big powerful centre forwards, the two of them tend to play in slightly different areas of the pitch. We can see this when we look at their heat maps this season courtesy of SofaScore, and immediately the first thing we can see is that Haaland has taken up much more central positions for large parts of the season, with Nunez gravitating to the left. Whilst the positioning varies slightly, one thing that they have in common is that they are both coming off the back of an incredible goal scoring season, with the two of them massively overperforming their expected goals. But is that sustainable? Well, from Haaland's point of view, the answer to that question is yes, because he produced very similar numbers the season before. As for Nunez, there are a few more question marks because in 2021 he underperformed on the XG model. With that in mind, I think it seems fair to say that Haaland is the player that coming into the league with a bigger reputation. He's outperformed his expected goals pretty much every season, smashing pretty much every goal scoring record along the way. As for Nunez, I think he's coming into the league with a big reputation after a brilliant goal scoring season. However, his numbers in the past don't necessarily match the hype, so it'll be interesting to see whether he sustains his form from this year. Regardless, if Guardiola and Klopp are able to get these two firing on all cylinders, then the Premier League fans may witness two of the best finishes we've seen over the past few seasons. There's certainly a lot of potential with these two players. So I think you probably get the point now that these are two brilliant finishers, and I think that's quite obvious. But what's less clear is the playstyle and perhaps the way that the two of them will fit into the new sides coming into next season. So for this section we need to look at City and Liverpool, and I think it's quite fair to say that the two of them have been built around extremely technically gifted players over the past few seasons, with forwards often operating as false nines. Just to put it bluntly, Haaland and Nunez will not operate in the same way. They're both good players in their own right, but neither of these two will want to drop into the midfield and link the play. It isn't their playstyle and probably never will be. One of the reasons for this is because they are both very unorthodox on the ball, and if you watch the two of them dribble, these aren't aesthetically pleasing players, and without wanting to sound rude, they can be quite clunky on the ball. This lack of natural technical ability is probably highlighted when we look at their FBref reports, where we can see Haaland with 70% pass success rate and Nunez with 54% pass accuracy. These are not players that want to link the play. So that's the criticism finished there. These aren't players that can link the play with passing, but they certainly do thrive in other areas, so that's what we're going to look at now, because there's a reason that so much has been spent on these two players. So one area where the two of these really thrive is in the transition, and both of them are absolutely brilliant when they play up against a high line, and are able to use their explosiveness to get in behind and destroy defenders. One of the reasons they're both so good in transition is because of their powerful physiques, and I mean it's quite obvious that the two of them spend a lot of time in the gym, and it shows when you see them matched up against a centre back. As a result of this physicality and power, Haaland and Nunez have been absolutely terrorising defenders, and as I was saying earlier on in the video, the two of them scored a ridiculous amount of goals last season and really bullied defenders. Now, they're both brilliant in transition, but aside from that they actually both operate in slightly different ways, and we'll start with Nunez, who, as we saw earlier, often drifts over to the left hand side despite starting the match up front. Having moved over to the left hand side, Nunez really comes into his element, using his size and strength to power his way past the opposition, before cutting inside and looking to fire shots in from range, regularly shooting from outside the box. Now for Haaland, and straight away we see a major difference, because Haaland almost never pulls into this wider area, and instead he very much looks to stay within the width of the box. He knows where the goal is, and that is where he stays. This is backed up when we look at his shot map as well, and we can see that he very rarely takes shots from range or even from tight angles, and instead he is nearly always within the width of the 6-yard box looking to get into these goal scoring positions. These are probably their two strong points. Nunez likes to get the ball wide before then coming in field, whilst Haaland likes to operate quite central. However, yet again, most of their chances come during transition in counter-attacks. The reason for this is because they are both actually incredibly fast. You wouldn't expect it when you see their physique, but the two of them rank right up there as the fastest players in the Champions League last season. They are deadly. The question now is, can they transition this into the Premier League? And this threat on the counter-attack is why I think the two of them might do better in big games against teams that press high, because this will leave space in behind the defence for their pace to exploit. My concern for the two of them actually comes against some of the smaller teams, because I think most people would agree that the Premier League is the hardest league in the world, and the standard of defending throughout the league is much higher. As a result of this, the big teams often struggle to break down some of these so-called smaller teams, and the quality of the Premier League defenders means that forwards are given a lot less space than what you might get in some of the other leagues. This is my concern for Haaland and Nunez, because the two of them simply aren't used to playing against low blocks, and when they face the likes of Wolves or Brentford, I do wonder how they get on with less space to work with in and around the box. This is why pre-season is going to be so important. For Haaland and Nunez to really succeed in the Premier League, they are going to need to evolve and adapt their game. If not, then they run the risk of stalling in their careers. Obviously, this is where the two clubs are important as well, and whilst Nunez and Haaland do need to adapt and evolve, Liverpool and City have obviously seen something that they like, and they're clearly both desperate for an out-and-out goalscorer. The important thing is that it's going to take time. Some players in the last couple of seasons have adapted quickly, but I think it's important that we don't expect that from everybody, and I'm sure early on they'll take any goal that they can get for a bit of confidence. Even something like penalties could help give the players a bit of momentum, and that's an area where Haaland may have an advantage because I would expect him to be City's main penalty taker, but I don't think the same can be said for Nunez because of Salah. Obviously the two of them can't just rely on penalties anyway, so what I want to look at now is a couple of patterns to watch out for this season, which could lead to a lot of goals, and the two important players are De Bruyne and Alexander-Arnold. So we'll start with Nunez, and I'm really expecting to see him drifting towards the back post onto the much physically smaller fullback, from where he'll be able to get onto the end of Arnold's cross before powering the ball past the goalkeeper. I think crossing could be important for Haaland as well, because we've all seen those deadly low whipped crosses from Kevin De Bruyne, and with Haaland operating quite central, he is the perfect player to score a load of tap-ins next season. I'm sure things like this are something that Guardiola and Klopp will have in mind. Both City and Liverpool create a ridiculous amount of chances, but they both just lack that goal scorer to finish it off. Haaland and Nunez should fix that. Without doubt, I am confident that both Haaland and Nunez will score plenty of goals even in their first season. However, I do still have my reservations, and I don't think either of these moves are as perfect as what mainstream media is telling us. I think it's important that fans aren't tricked by this fairy tale that the media is making up. These two do not slot straight into the current Liverpool or Manchester City setup, and it's naive to think they will. They do not fit the current playstyle. Regardless, Guardiola and Klopp are two of the very best managers that we've ever seen. They're certainly right up there, and they will have a plan in place. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind about that, and I think we're about to see an evolution in football. As a result of this evolution, I do think that Liverpool and Manchester City fans will be treated to a lot of goals from their new main men. There may be a period of adjustment at the start of the season, but I do think they will score a lot of goals. I guess the question now is who will score more goals next season, and who will end the year with more trophies. That's probably a conversation for another day, but I want to hear your thoughts on who you think will do better, so get in the comments down below and let me know what you think. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.